Fantastic. All right. Well, welcome to this VBCU sponsored event. We are so pleased to have Mayor Bree with us today. Really, really great. Thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it. VBCU is a group of leaders here in Visitation Valley who come together to give voice to Visitation Valley. We understand, and it's well known, that this is one of the areas of the city that's been forgotten for a long time, and so VBCU helps to give a voice, helps people organize, find solutions, and bring them to those that can make decisions. So we are pleased to host this series of interviews. I do want to say, unfortunately, this is going to be the last one. We were scheduled to have Mark Farrell on Sunday, but for a scheduling conflict, he said he couldn't come. So this is the last one. But we are certainly glad that you are here to speak to Visitation Valley. So I will ask, please, audience, that you, as we talk, please do not applaud, because that will be a total different event. This is a real conversation. As I explained to Nubia, I'm an undecided voter. The questions are genuine. There's no, I have no axe to grind. There's no attempt on my part to back you in the corner or anything like that. I'm really genuinely curious about what you're going to say about the issues that we're going to talk about tonight. So it's a real conversation. I'm going to also ask you if you would refrain from disparaging any of the other candidates. This is really just about you and what you intend to do. All right, I'm not going to really ask about any other candidates either. So, all right, so an opening statement.
Well, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. And I'm just going to respectfully disagree about the forgotten community because when I first became mayor, one of the first things I did was held my budget speech out here because this project to my right was a project that wasn't going to happen. It was promised to the community that Sunnydale would be rehabilitated and it would be first in line. And the resources were running out, and there were a lot of commitments to go from 700 and I think 70 units to 1,700 units with a one-for-one replacement and not a displacement. And so I made that commitment, but I also made the commitment to ensure that it wasn't just about the housing. It was about the community, making sure that we incorporated, and I even personally raised money to build the Boys and Girls Club that's going to be opening up there, to focus the attention on the park and the rehabilitation and all the work that had happened there. And in addition to that, Leland Avenue and the investments, the financial investments in all the businesses, the recent activities, the light shows, you name it, all of that comes because of the resources that I've consistently invested in this community. And when I took office as mayor, there was somewhere around $3 million or so going to a number of organizations specifically for the Department of Children, Youth, and Family. There's now over 8 million. And that's just the Department of Youth and Families. That's not even the resources we invested in businesses and the support that we continue to give to this community. So I may not necessarily be out here as much as I'd like to, but the investments and the support continues. And more importantly, the projects that were delayed have not been denied, and they continue. And the last thing I want to say is I'm really proud that we were very intentional about working with community in trying to get this done. And some of the African-American contractors, including some folks who have grown up in the Bayview Hunters Point community, received contracts, and it provided an opportunity for them to hire people. We've created about 220 units of housing. We know there's 1,700 more to go. But again, when I grew up in Plaza East in Fillmore, there were 300 units of housing. They were all torn down and only 200 built. And most of the people I grew up with were sent to Vallejo and other places outside the city. And I made sure that that didn't happen in this community. That was really important, that you don't move people out of the community, but you want to build first and make sure that the community has the option to choose when the units became available first. And that is something that I'm really proud of. So I can go on and on,
Yeah.
Pastor, but I have been very intentional about making sure that this community hasn't been forgotten with the investments that we have been making consistently, and they are growing.
All right, well, I appreciate that. And I think that what you're saying, people don't know. Did I understand you to say that $3 million was being invested before you became mayor
Yes.
in Visitation Valley?
For children and youth only.
In Visitation Valley?
Yes.
And then, so, because I'm not talking about Bayview or the rest of D10, I'm just saying here, and you're saying now it's $8 million here.
Yes.
Wow, okay.
And that doesn't include money for childcare. That's a separate pot. I didn't have the numbers before I got here.
Yeah.
That doesn't include the financial investments in the businesses along here. And so it's just Department of Children, Youth and Families programs that go directly to serve children and youth in this community specifically,
Okay.
and not the Bayview Hunters Point.
All right, well, thank you very much for that. I didn't know. All right, so let me ask you the first question. If you're elected, that's another 4 years. At the end of that 4 years, looking back, what would you like to have accomplished such that you can say that was a successful tenure term?
Well, first of all, when I'm reelected, when I'm reelected, or let's just be clear, because we're in a spiritual place. What is for me is going to be for me, and God will decide what is going to be for me, and I will feel honored to do whatever is within my path, because as a spiritual woman, everything that I do comes from that place of love for community, and also frustration for what I experienced growing up in San Francisco. And so when I look back on even my legacy now, I mean, I feel like I'm not done, because part of what I want to be able to do is set in motion a system by which folks in our community in particular, we don't have to necessarily beg for scraps. And one of the reasons why I was very intentional about the Dream Keeper initiative, investments in the African American communities of San Francisco, is because you look at the data and the disparities, and the resources didn't match up. It was a lot of talk and not a lot of investment. And so when I look back on what I've done for the community, I want to make sure that housing is built in this city, in every neighborhood, that is affordable, that allows for kids who grow up in these neighborhoods to not have to just live with their mamas and grandmamas, but to have their own place and to be a part of their community. That is what I want to look back and be proud. I want to see people in these communities be able to open their own businesses if they want to. And that's a Dream Keeper initiative has been really helpful in providing opportunities for that. I want to make sure that the next generation of San Franciscans, that they are on a path to know that no matter what they choose to do in life, they can do whatever it is they want. And they can be successful. And they can be a scientist. They can be president of the United States. They can be whatever they want to be. Because here's the thing. For me, I wasn't even supposed to be here. I wasn't supposed to be here because, like, some of you know my family. You know what I lived through. And the fact that someone like me who can grow up in public housing, raised by my grandmother, not know my biological father, lose my sister to a drug overdose, have my brother still incarcerated, and to then be mayor of San Francisco, that's nothing but God. And so everything I do every single day, the politics, mayors come and go. People who are in elected office, they come and go. But the decisions we make leave an impact on the people who are part of these communities. So I've made it very clear over doing this job that I won't do it in fear of losing it, because it's too important. People's lives are at stake. I'm really proud of what we've been able to accomplish. And no, it's not enough. I mean, it's a major city. There are major problems. We have more to do, and I know that. But I want to be able to look back and say, you know what? the city is safer. You know what? My son opened his own restaurant, and I'm proud of that. And he was born and raised in San Francisco. For people to say, I bought my first home. That is my goal. It's what happens with the lives of people who live here and grew up here and want to stay here. Because most of my friends don't live here anymore. And that is something that I fight for every single day.
Right, and you're absolutely right. Most of my friends don't live here anymore either. And I was born and raised, so I definitely appreciate that as well. So regarding the Dreamkeeper initiative, would you say that is a success so far?
We've had some challenges. I would say the Dreamkeeper initiative, we've helped people with down payment assistance. We've helped new businesses open with build out and other expenses. We've invested in we've been able to do even more by investing in a number of organizations because of Dreamkeeper that would otherwise not get city funding.
Yeah.
A lot of events and festivals, you probably noticed more activations here. A lot of the money that goes to pay for those things to happen come from Dreamkeeper. And so there's been a lot of great things that have happened as a result of it, but also it happened so fast. And, for example, there are organizations that went from, maybe 50,000 a year to $1 million a year. And the challenge with that is we didn't prepare them properly, because we are still talking about city money, and city money has drama. And we have to make sure, and this is what we're doing now, making sure that there are accountability tools to ensure success. Because, I don't know if you've been reading a lot of the stories, especially in the Standard. Every other week, it seems like there's a story attacking an African-American organization.
Right.
And it is constant, and it's frustrating, and it is costing our important organizations that are serving the community. Yeah. And so part of it is we probably could have done as a city a better job in putting in place the right tools to ensure that abuse or those, the mismanagement didn't happen. Yeah. And so that's what we're doing as we speak. But the other side of it is when everybody had talked about after the tragic death of George Floyd, everybody was talking about what they're going to do for the Black community. Everybody said, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And we did something here. We made something happen. It wasn't perfect, but it has led to support to a lot of people and a lot of organizations. And of course, there could be more always. It could be run better always. And we are definitely on the right path to get there.
Okay, so the changes you plan to make have to do with capacity building or something else?
Yeah, it's going to have to do with mostly accountability and internal systems within the city, and setting up certain benchmarks to ensure that there's the accountability piece. So we don't find out from a whistleblower complaint, or we don't deal with it after the fact. It's on the front end, making sure that every dollar is spent for the purpose intended. And there are accountability mechanisms. Like if we expect someone to serve, 50 students and they're providing enrichment programs, we need to make sure that those 50 students are actually 50 students. And we have to make sure that the programs that they're paying for are, legitimate programs or legitimate instructors. And so there are some things that we're putting in place to make sure that that's the case. And I know in some instances, people may not be certified teachers, but they're still teachers. And so we have to make sure that we establish the criteria on the front end rather than questioning it on the back end. So there's all these different layers we have to fix and we have to clean up to account for allowing community to serve on their terms without dealing with the drama of the city on the back end. So in some cases, problematic, and others, just a lot of confusion.
Yeah. All right, so you brought up the next topic, which is safety. You brought it up in the context of the pendulum swinging with the George Floyd issues and defund the police and all these outcries. And really there seemed to be an actual recognition of the injustices that have been, from the beginning of the United States levied against Black people in the criminal justice system, in policing, et cetera. Prop 47. And then the pendulum is now swinging in the other direction. And so, and for whatever reason, all the reasons that exist, uh, there is that outcry is gone. And in this valley, there's some really sharp divides in terms of safety, what measures should be taken, how to protect the city, et cetera. I know that you are a proponent of the cameras and the license plate readers and the drones. So my question is, how do you, well, one, I want you to talk about those things and how they're going to impact this valley.
Mhm.
And then also in that, if you would answer, balancing that against what still exists in the inequities and disparities in the police and in the justice system, how you're going to balance that out with this, uh, I'm hesitant to say law and order, but that kind
Yeah.
of push.
Mhm. Well, I appreciate that question, and I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about this here because it's a lot of different layers to this. But I do want to start off by the fact that crime in 2023 was lower than it's been in 10 years. And even year to date in 2024, it's 34% lower. And homicides are down 40% even this year. We've had 17 homicides, a 90% clearance rate, a 90% solve rate on those homicides. And for this community and what folks have been through with gun violence, this was unheard of when we were growing up. And so people are talking about safety. And look, major cities have problems. But the problems that everyone is concerned about are property crimes, car break-ins, and those kinds of things. And I understand that. But I just thank God that the level of homicides that used to destroy our community are not what they used to be. And so I just want to give you the facts because there's a lot of misinformation. Even anti-Asian hate crimes are down almost 90% because of the work we've been doing to make investments. So how do we get there? Like, look, I think some of it has to do with technology and how people take a video footage and, oh my God, look what happened, right? I mean, I've seen worse happen than some of the things I've seen on the videos.
Right.
And I think it's kind of made it seem like things are just kind of out of control more than ever before. I mean, retail theft has seen its largest decline in San Francisco more than any other major city. So the facts and the data say one thing, but this is politics. And there are people campaigning for this job. And they want to keep us moving backwards, and I want to move us forward. And I have worked really hard to do a couple of things. Number one, and what people don't hear about is, yeah, we need more police, but I have implemented and completed over 272 recommendations that were made under the U.S. Attorney's Office, Obama administration, for police reforms. I have completed those this year, and they included a number of recommendations to help prevent the kinds of interactions that have led to the death of people like George Floyd. And alternatives mean when there is someone struggling with mental illness, that no longer is a police response. That's the street crisis response team. I set up the first model in the country, and other cities have duplicated what I've done here. That means when there is a wellness check of someone who's in a home and struggling, that's no longer a police response. That's another response of a clinician or some other resource from the fire department. When there are needs for what people say they want, community policing, we have ambassadors, retired police officers, people who were formerly incarcerated through urban alchemy and have been criminally justice involved. They're in the Tenderloin communities. We work with the Street Violence Intervention Program. We work with CYC, Community Youth Center, and created a different kind of public safety mechanism. And so we did a number of things, and more importantly, fentanyl is different. Fentanyl is like, again, I grew up in the midst of the crack epidemic, and I've never seen anything like what fentanyl does to kill. And so I got together with friends who I grew up with, former drug dealers, friends who are former drug users. And a lot of my advice for my policies around arresting dealers and users came from them. And they stood with me when I made the announcement, and no one asked them why. No one asked them why. Why do you support this? Why do you believe this is the direction we need to take? You did 20 years in the pen for selling crack.
Right.
And so these decisions are not made in isolation. And the decision to use technology, like license plate readers, drones, and all of those things, is because we are moving not in a law and order direction, but we cannot have a police ambassador and people everywhere at every given time in order to ensure safety. And this is a way for us to do so. I have a friend who granddaughter, who's an adult, was robbed. And it was, she's Black, she in the neighborhood, she robbed. Because of our 100 license plate readers that are up, we've got 400 going on up around the city. The people who robbed her, the 3 people, within a few hours were arrested. And then they had robbed a bunch of other people, and so all the other stuff confiscated. And I just want to, for me, growing up, there used to be a code. And the codes have been just thrown out the door because, things have changed. And what we have to do is make sure that there's accountability. And when I say accountability, I'm not trying to lock everyone up and throw away the key. I believe in giving people a warning. I believe in giving people second chances. I have people who are formerly incarcerated who work for the mayor of San Francisco. So that's not even a question. But the anything goes and the disrespect for community, I don't support that. Getting murderers off the streets of our city, I don't support that. I don't support letting them, get a pass. And so we are using technology to help us combat some of these issues. And how we use that technology, license plate readers are going to be everywhere in the city. They're not facial recognition. Surveillance technology is based on the challenges in the community. The data shows that we don't have crime in this neighborhood. It's not what it used to be. And there probably won't be a need for surveillance technology unless people in the community request it, unless people in the community want it. There will be surveillance technology in the Tenderloin and the South of Market communities and in the Mission. There will be drones used, for whatever problems we might have, and we need, that kind of technology. So the goal is not to be this place that's covered in cameras, but everybody is walking around with a camera. So eventually all this stuff gets recorded anyway. But our goal is to focus on safety, not to be in everybody's business, to only be in your business if you're doing the wrong thing. That's the goal, because people deserve to be safe in their neighborhoods.
So the drones, how will they be employed?
So the drones are like this. You know how there's high-speed chases in LA with helicopters? We have drones to do that now. So if you have somebody, Leland, you know how Leland is, and people speeding down Leland all the time. And we fixing that, don't worry. We got a plan for that speed bump situation because of the bus. That's a whole nother conversation. But if someone's trying to speed to get away and there's people outside and crossing the street, the police will not pursue because somebody can get killed. And that's where drone technology can be useful. The police can't keep going, but the drone can eventually get to, with our license plate readers, with our drones, and follow someone who's trying to evade the law after committing a crime and whatever the case is.
Right.
So that's really how we're trying to use technology like drones, or these sideshows, right? When the sideshows are happening, I mean, like, look, folks used to go to Candlestick. That's where you're supposed to go. But on the streets, when you got all these people and folks getting hit, it's different, right? It's, in order to, I mean, and a lot of the sideshows, the people are coming from outside the city because we've reduced the number of sideshows by half, and we've towed double the number of cars because we use our license plate readers right now for that purpose, and drones will be able to also provide us another visual of what's actually going on to hopefully stop these things from happening.
So the drone's just going to be flying around monitoring things?
No, they're only meant to be used when there's a crime, when there's there's someone who takes a bunch of people hostage, and it's really a way to see. It's eyes in a situation where you can't have eyes, and as a way to potentially follow suspects. Yeah. But no, they're not going to be just following around, like hanging out in your neighborhood. But they are. We're testing some technology now around some drones. We have 400 license plate readers going up, and there will be another. I mean, there's 100 up, and there'll be another 400, and and then the surveillance is based on the neighborhoods and in connection with working with the neighborhoods. And most of the merchant corridors are very much interested in it, especially where we have a high level of break-ins. And the drones won't be just flying around, that just, watching people. No, that's not the plan.
Okay. All right. Well, hopefully it'll never become that.
Yeah.
So if I just for clarity's sake, I think I heard everything that you said in terms of the balance between the safety needs and people acting up. Is there any work that you're doing with the police or with the DA's office, or even the judges or whoever, to make sure that sentencing, arrests, et cetera, that the disparity is minimized?
Well, the good news is we have a lot of really great programs in our criminal justice system that work with people to help get them on the right path. I mean, say worst case scenario, a young man, I mean, there's a situation, he's like 17, he did something he shouldn't have did, going around taking people mail during the month that they get their check and doing a little bit too much. And, that's a felony.
Right.
And so there is a program, because this is his first offense, there's a program that instantly is his representative. And then the goal is to work with his representative, as well as whoever his counsel is, which would be a public defender.
Right.
And to work with the DA's office to try and figure out, how do we make a deal, right? To avoid jail time in some cases. You can be on a probation or something. If you complete this program in the next year, we won't press charges. Or there's a lot of that going on. Okay. That's consistent in terms of how things are being handled.
Got it.
And that is, fortunately, even before I was elected, those are programs that were already embedded in our criminal justice system. And a lot of them do a really great job in working with, not just young people, but, people who have been in prison for a really long time and they're coming home. And they basically need a check, like right when they get home, they need a program, they need, they need a whole bunch of things. And so we have a lot of resources around that. And perfect example, Urban Alchemy is probably one of the best examples of, you come out, this is your job, and you're in the Tenderloin helping us deal with some of this. Because a lot of these folks, they're like, I've turned my life around, and I don't want to go back, and I want a second chance. This is their first opportunity to get a second chance. And the other thing is, if they want to work for the city, they can. We ban the box. We don't discriminate against someone who's done time if they want to work and apply to work for the city, and it's a training program, or, I mean, we're always looking for muni drivers and maintenance folks and, all kinds of things. I mean, you probably can't be a police officer, but there are other options within the city that we can make happen.
Right.
So that's a lot of what this city does. And what happens, I'll tell you, I meet a lot more people from LA and other cities who are taking advantage of all these programs, and not necessarily a lot of folks who are from the city when I'm out there having my conversations with people that I run into.
And why do you think that is? Do you think there's a communication problem, or you think people know they just don't want to participate?
It's hard to say, because when I asked the folks, like, why did they choose to come here, they just said it was better opportunities here than in LA. Or, I just heard a lot of different, like San Francisco has, give me a better shot at a better life. I hear a lot of that all the time. Like,
well, a lot of people come from other places here.
Oh yeah, it's a lot.
including homeless people.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that for a minute. On the news, they're talking about Texas governor sending people who cross the border from Mexico to New York, to Chicago, wherever. So are they sending people here as well from Texas?
So I don't want to say something that I don't know if it's true or not.
Okay.
But I will say that, I'm out in the community a lot, and I'm especially out in the Tenderloin. And I meet people from everywhere. And when I say everywhere, everywhere. And in many instances, they haven't even been in San Francisco for a year. And so just to give you a perspective, and this is why we have to change direction, because since I've been mayor, we've helped over 15,000 people exit homelessness. And our point in time count has always been around 7,000, 8,000 people. So people are always wondering, well, if we helped over 15,000 people, why have we not solved the problem? We've increased our shelter capacity by over 60%. That's why you see the numbers go up. It's not the unsheltered, it's the shelter. So all the people who are in shelters, that counts as them still being homeless. We have increased permanent supportive housing to help people get wraparound services, especially people who suffer from addiction or other issues. We have some incredible programs. And I'm really proud. I mean, we've been investing resources into helping people, including abstinence-based programs, which this city never saw as a solution. And I've invested over $20 million for 7 new programs to help with abstinence-based treatment, including Her House, where women who have children who struggle with addiction can live there with their children. So we're investing those resources. So we put all this money, all these programs, all these opportunities, yet we still struggle, right? Because San Francisco is a place that's known for compassion. And the frustration I have is that as much as I'm a spiritual person, I want to help people, I can't help the world. Because then the more money and more resources I put into this, the less money and less resources I'm able to put in community. And so some of the changes we've had to make, and we're in the process of trying to implement this now with our Homeward Bound program. We usually require that there's someone on the other end, to receive you if we're going to send you home to Idaho or wherever it is you came from. Well, we're changing that policy. As long as we can prove that this is where you came from. We have people coming from all kinds of places looking for their kids in the Tenderloin. Like we have this fentanyl thing is really one of the most harmful, devastating things that I said I've seen, and the most deadliest is even more than COVID, gun violence, everything that we've dealt with in this city, this has been the worst. And so we are doubling down on making it less comfortable for people to be on the streets if we offer you shelter, less comfortable for people to be in San Francisco if we're able to connect you with a free one-way ticket to go home. And so those are some of the things that we need to do now, because as much as we've increased our shelter, as much as we've increased permanent supportive housing, we cannot do it fast enough to deal with the influx of people coming from everywhere expecting us to save the world. And I wish I could. So we have to make some hard decisions, and that's what we're doing as we speak.
So I don't even know if you know the number, but how many people, homeless people, would you say in a particular year come to San Francisco homeless?
I don't want to say the wrong number.
Yeah.
I don't know the number off the top of my head, but I will say that, what I told you in terms of helping over 15,000 people since 2018, and we've never even had that many people in our homeless time count.
Right.
And the other thing I'll say is, because we have different kind of nicer weather, we have like more people. We have, what is it?
Oh, sorry, just wanted to do
Oh.
a time check.
Oh, okay.
What's the time check?
We need to go around 8:15.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got it.
We're
There's a lot to share.
we're okay.
Okay.
Get some points in, 'cause,
Yeah.
that's what I'm here for.
Okay, thank you. I was like, what's going on?
Yeah.
What's going on? So it's hard to say, but that just gives you some perspective. And I know, like, the streets were clean and clear for a minute, and then June, we got a big influx. And when I say influx, because, I'm a talkative person, and people, like my detail, they're like, they get nervous when I walk up to certain people. I have no problem talking to anybody and asking. Some people are not coherent. They can't even communicate. They're so messed up. But for the people who do talk, like, they've been from everywhere. And I rarely nowadays run into people who are from San Francisco that are out on the street. The people in the Tenderloin, a lot of the folks who are doing clean and sober and living there, a lot of them are from San Francisco, from different neighborhoods in San Francisco. But the folks who are struggling out there, most of them are not from the city, and it's really hard to tell.
Okay, so 15,000 off the street, still the number on the street is staying consistent. So that's a lot of people coming in.
Well, let me make a correction, because so for example, and I know this is, so the shelter homelessness has gone up because we've increased shelter.
Right.
So the unsheltered homelessness has gone down.
Okay.
So the people who are actually on the streets. And in fact, when I came into office, the encampments were 58% higher than they are today. So we're able to, there are less people who, because when we go out there and we try to help people, about 60% of them say no. About 30% say yes. 10% are housed. So there are people that you might think, there's this one guy who lives in Richardson Apartments who sleeps in this one doorway and who will not go home. It's like he sleeps in this doorway every night, and he lives 2 blocks away in Richardson Apartments. He needs a different kind of help. So we have that problem that we're struggling, mental illness, substance use disorder, but he's mentally, it's mental illness with him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so you said percentages, but could you give us a number? Unsheltered homeless, how many people are we talking about?
So, let me see, I haven't looked at those numbers. So the numbers are about 8,000, and I'm just guesstimating, I have to get you it's in the 8,000 range, so it's about 8,000 overall homelessness, right? And then we have less than 4,000 of those are unsheltered. But it was over 4,000, now it's less than 4,000 that are unsheltered. So technically the people who are on the streets based on our homeless count, including people who live in their vehicles, that counts as unsheltered. Right. So that's in the unsheltered number, which is in the 3,000 person range.
Okay. Well, I think in my communications, people don't know what you just said, because they're talking about the 8,000. People are not really focused on the shelter. They're focused on people
what they see on the street.
Exactly. And that has diminished. I think this is the first time I heard you, and I've watched the debates, I've looked at the
I get
website.
60 seconds in the debates. And then, like, it just, the difference is I've been doing this work and I know what I'm doing. And then criticism is so easy to criticize and to try and tear somebody down, especially when you want their job. But there's also facts. And that's why I don't understand why in some of these debates, there isn't fact checking. I mean, you could easily Google some of this stuff too. And it's like, was that true? Was that true? Was that true? Because I've been doing this job and I've been focused and determined to get this work done. Again, not to get reelected, but to make San Francisco better. That's my goal. I love the city. I feel honored and blessed to be mayor, which, as I said, things could have been worse. And so it's coming from a different place. In the debates, it's hard because they treat me, like I'm not the mayor. Because you know how they treat me. They're going to give me 60 seconds to tell you what I did and what I'm going to do and dispute the lies. That's what happens. And I asked, I said, I want to do a one-on-one with each so we can have it out and we can talk about the facts. When I came into office, the previous temporary mayor, tents were 58% higher. Violent crime, 40% higher. Property crime, 70% higher, and car break-ins, 115% higher. That is what was happening from the same person who wants to brag about their record. And I'm just putting out the facts. And this is what I'm dealing with. So I think what's so important is that we talk about the facts. You've seen me do my thing in terms of being the mayor. You know what I'm about, you know what I stand for. And my hope is that there's a deeper dive as to what these other people stand for. Because they stand for not communicating the facts. And I'm not gonna say they all been attacking me, but one person in particular who for some reason the Lord has somehow made it so that they couldn't walk through these doors. The Lord works in mysterious ways. There's a reason. There's a reason. And all I'm saying is, and this is why this provides a better opportunity to really talk about it. Because on these debate stages, I feel like it's Joe Biden and Donald Trump. It's tough.
All right.
Except I'm in a different situation.
All right, so let's see. Boy, time is going by, so I know.
That's because I'm a talker.
Time is flying. So I do want to talk about business development. So let me ask that question really quickly, and then we'll go to the audience questions. Leland Avenue. Do you have a plan for small businesses? Do you have a plan? And this is what you actually are planning to do: revitalize Leland, and help. Well, you already talked about Dream Keepers, so I'll just leave it right there.
So I would just say that there's about 4 businesses that I know for a fact that have financially benefited and gotten a lot of support from the city to open businesses and sustain businesses. In addition to all the activations and things that happen there, a lot of the resources for that come from the city. That little walkway and area where the light show was, like that the mural, everything, that's all of the investment from the city based on what the community said they wanted to see. So we've already been investing in the corridor. And more importantly, I'm really proud that we introduced a program called First Year Free. So we waive all city fees for the first year for anyone who wants to open a new business. And so the time is now. And the other thing we've done is we've gotten rid of over 100 requirements. Because back in the day, probably before we were born, you could easily open a business. 2 Jacks could easily open back in the day, right? And now you got to go through the rigmarole of the city to open a business. We got rid of a whole bunch of city requirements to make it easy to do more than one. That's why the coffee shop has, they're selling items and they could do coffee, but you couldn't do things like that before. So our goal is to get to yes, and you can do over-the-counter permits. The permitting process is so much easier, the first year free. And then Dreamkeeper is the program that will invest in helping people when they don't have an angel investor to invest, if folks are interested in opening businesses on Leland Avenue. If they could find, landlords who are willing to give them a chance and, decent rent, we have resources to make things like that happen. And one of the things I am really proud of is during APEC, the Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation, when all the heads of state, the Good Chocolate, which is on Leland, we bought all our chocolate from them. They got a nice, good it wasn't a city contract, it was paid right away, but it was the money we raised because we put their chocolate in, we bought all city stuff made in the city to give to all the delegates and all the people. And it happened because they make it right here on Leland Avenue. So it's really providing these opportunities to connect the businesses with also other opportunities throughout the city. So we are open to, revitalizing or investing or providing resources to the existing businesses. The Good Idea Cafe, before they opened here, Creative Idea Cafe, where they do catering. So I used them a long time ago before they even opened over here. And I was like, their food is so good, they need their own space. And I'm so glad that they chose this neighborhood. They do catering, and you can still go order food and eat there. And so if there are people who have an interest in opening a business, and we have the resources and the support now, we don't have to talk about what we're gonna do. First year free, we started 2 years ago, and almost 6,000 businesses have taken advantage of it. And we've seen corridors revitalized because they take advantage of what we have to offer. And it is just, been a game changer. And we've noticed along 3rd and Newcomb and that other, businesses are starting, there's some new businesses starting to open on 3rd in that corridor, and it's more robust. And that's what you want. I mean, this is a great community over here. And when I say great, I love coming over here hiding and eating and hanging out. And, I come over here, I see the same people on Leland. I see Bill, I see Kelly, I see Marlene, I see, when I do come over here, you see who you see and some of the regulars. And it is nice to see people outside the cafe sitting in seats, having their coffee and just enjoying the community. And we are totally here for more opportunities of those who might be interested. It would be amazing to have people from here open a business here, whatever business they're interested in.
All right. Well, I appreciate this. Russell, you're going to ask the questions. This is Russell Maureen, part of VBCU, and I'm going to relinquish.
And these are, thank you for coming. So these are rapid fire questions from the audience. So we're going to ask you to try to answer within a minute. Okay. I'll just tell you now, we have 4 about Dreamkeepers. Okay. So we can save that maybe to the end. A basic, well, we'll take them to the end. Okay. 4 Dreamkeeper questions. Okay. Community policing. As it relates to safety, if and when reelected, is there a plan to bring back community-based policing that helping to keep crime down in neighborhoods like Sunnydale and Potrero Hill?
I think what we did here in this neighborhood and what we're probably going to change, we had community youth center ambassadors and street violence intervention program. They were coordinated right after a lot of the anti-Asian hate. They were here on Leland, they were on San Bruno, and then it just kind of died down. And so one of the programs we have, we could continue to work with these organizations if the community is open to it, but there's also retired police officers that we could use as ambassadors in this neighborhood as well. So we don't have to wait again until the election. We can look at the possibilities of that being a part of Leland Avenue. But I will also say Leland Avenue has been in pretty good shape.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Next question. Other candidates were asked if they had plans to fire department heads if elected. What are your plans if reelected?
I would just say that's really disrespectful because I don't go around talking about I'm gonna fire somebody to make myself look bigger and stronger than I am. You know, as someone who, you know, like there are people who live paycheck to paycheck no matter what, but as the director, as the mayor, you know, when it's time for somebody to go, then I will send them packing. But what I won't do is go out there campaigning about who I'm gonna get rid of. And in my administration, when I'm reelected, yeah, there are gonna be some changes, but I'm not gonna go throwing somebody under the bus in this process. I just think that's really ridiculous to hear people do that kind of stuff.
Thank you. Question about 5066 Raymond, that's the old community center. Mayor Breed, please let folks know how you can improve our old Visitacion Valley Community Center to provide space and programming.
Yeah, and I will say for many of the programs that happen there, we have invested, you know, a lot of money directly into the programs. So many of the organizations who use the space have seen their budgets increase significantly. But that place needs to be rebuilt. And we're having some conversations around, you know, because if we have to tear it down, what does that mean for the people who need it? And so we are having some conversations about what the plans are, what the possibilities are, and what could be the plans. There's a development across the street. We're trying to figure out can we work something out for a new location? Because we know that this is a building for and by the community. Malia Cohen worked hard to make sure that it stayed a part of the community, but it does need some TLC. And I am committed to working with the community to get to the right decision. I think the biggest obstacle we've had is where does the community go when we have to do what we need to do. And so the facility needs to be bigger. It needs to be more ADA accessible. There's so many things, and it could be an incredible community space, but rehab won't solve the problems. It'll make it better, but long term, you know, we need a new facility.
Okay,
and that's my commitment, is to work with the community on a rehabilitation plan or a new facility.
Thank you. This is somewhat related. Slade Lock. What can you do to get the Slade Lock development started?
So that project is probably going to start. We're having discussions. Some of you might know their market rate, market trends have led to challenges with building housing. So the interest rates are so high that there's been a stalling of building housing and building affordable housing. Luckily for us, we've had some bonds, we've had some tax credits, we've been able to do other projects, but this project has been at a standstill financially. Based on some of our conversations and things that we're trying to do to make adjustments to the project to make it more affordable to start, we think I don't want to give you a specific date, but we think hopefully we'll be able to announce something soon to give you a definitive date as to when things might start, because we do have a different creative financing tool where we will borrow the money on the front end to build out the infrastructure of the sidewalks and the pipes and all the stuff you need to build in order to the foundational work before the work starts. And I'm hoping that work can start soon, but hopefully we can announce soon when that will be.
And I think we have at least 3 of the former redevelopment agency community members. Myself, Larry, Marlene, we sat on that 20 years ago.
I know,
so
Marlene.
Parking. With all the new developments going up and around San Francisco, we know you are pushing for a car-free city. How will you assess and help with current parking issues residents are facing now?
So I want to be clear about what I'm pushing for. First of all, I'm not trying to make cars the problem. I'm happy to be in my car. And I don't like circling the block for parking. But the city needs to grow, the city needs to change, and the city needs to build more housing. And this is a very dense urban city, which does require the ability to make sure that we have bike lanes, we have ways in which cars can move around, we can make our muni safer and more efficient. So my goal is to make those things work with our existing infrastructure and changing it in such a way that it provides safer streets for everyone, no matter what mode of transportation you choose. And that's really what my goal is, because this city was mostly, when the vehicle was popular, it was like everything was about the car. And when I was growing up, nobody was biking. I mean, we had bikes that we rode on rims. We didn't have tires on our bikes. And now you have so many more people using bikes as a mode of transportation. You have people like Marlene who only catch Muni. So you have to make sure that all those modes of transportation, they know where they belong on the road to avoid harm coming to anybody. And so my goal and my vision is to change our infrastructure to meet those needs. And it's not about a car free, but I enjoy many of the car free spaces like JFK Boulevard, because I've never seen Golden Gate Park used as much as I see it being used now because of the way people are able to come together. When I was growing up, so eating outside, that didn't really happen, and in the parklets and all of those things. And those things have brought communities together. So providing a way to bring community together is a part of a lot of these shared spaces and things that we want to see. But this is not about a war on cars. This is about a balance for all modes of transportation.
All right, thank you. All right, one last one. Okay.
I do about 3 or 4 events a night.
Okay. Okay. So I think the ones that we did talk about, Dream Keepers, and I think the gist of it was how are you going to protect the Dream Keepers initiatives?
Yeah, and so I plan to protect the Dream Keeper initiative, but I just want to be very honest. My opponents have been criticizing me for taking resources from the police department. And by the way, when I took that money was excess overtime that we weren't using during COVID for parades, for festivals. It was money that was in the department that wasn't going to be spent. Not one officer lost their job. And I invested that into the African American community. And truth be told, a lot of other communities too have benefited from Dreamkeeper. And so we are making sure that Dreamkeeper is protected. And that means some of the people that have been unfortunately problematic, we have to make sure that they are moved away. And for those who have struggled and there have been some challenges, we have to make sure they have the right capacity and the tools so that they can continue to receive and implement the use of Dreamkeeper effectively and efficiently. So the plan is definitely to protect it. We've right-sized it from the amount of money that was to the amount of money. I can't be like just trying to hurry up and spend. We have to spend right. And that's one of the challenges we ran up against. And so there are resources, there are plans to keep it and protect it. And you probably want to ask some of those other people that's trying to run against me what they gonna do, because I think that's where the problem is. I created the program.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. Come on, Larry. Come on, Larry.
Hey, well, now see what we get? Okay, let me slow it down. Let me calm down. I just want to do a quick 3 things because she's been being very modest. Our new hub, Boys and Girls Club, a place for our kids that are disabled, our seniors to go and congregate, because we've been having the most decrepit Boys and Girls Club in the history of San Francisco for over 20, 30 years. Secondly, our gym, the bond measures that she supported, that we had to fight for to get because nobody wanted to give us money. Now our kids don't have to risk their lives to go play a game of basketball in another community. We're gonna have our own gym. We've never had that. Third, the construction site. Our young men who once decrepit this neighborhood are now rebuilding it, and they're raising their families. They're not going to prison. They're being fathers, and the ladies, there have been training classes. We've had a plethora of things that this woman has supported. They're not gonna report that on TV. They don't want no shine to come on our neighborhood. They want to put a black eye but I'm here to say that that's not happening because I'm on the ground. So I came to represent Sunnydale, my seniors, my Samoan families, my Asians, and the melting pot that we got over here. Shout out to River of Life for opening the doors up, and the family of River of Life who've been here for decades, holding down our neighborhood from breakfast to prayer, praying for this community. So big shouts to you, Pastor, and your family, your son, for the Bears Valley Outdoors. I know what time it is, and everybody in here, we know what time it is. She needs 4 more years so we can get more of this done. Straight up. Thank you, Pastor.
All right, closing statement. It's not my fault it's past 8:15.
I think Larry just did my closing statement. Oh. Ms. Passy? Yes. You got to come use the mic. I'm going to let them know I'm going to be late.
Well, thank you, Pastor, for this opening up the house of the Lord so we could be here together with the mayor. But I do want to echo my brother over here as far as the Samoan and the Pacific Islander community. I just want to say the mayor has invested these last 4 or 5 years in our community on top of the hill of Sunnydale. And I remember there was a meeting at the Pink Building, the Mayor Willie Brown, and that was the first time I've ever seen her come to Sunnydale. And I asked her a question, why don't you come up to Sunnydale and meet the Samoan community? And I don't know if it was a few weeks later or a couple months, she kept her word. And so for that, Mayor, I just want to, on behalf of the Samoan and the Pacific Islander community, not only here in this valley, but in the southeast, in D10, you've invested in our community, and now, and this you could ask anyone. In our summer program, there's over 350 kids in our summer program up on the hill because of the investment of the mayor and the Department of Children, Youth, and Families. So, on behalf of our community, Mayor. Madam Mayor, we just want to say thank you, and to echo Brother Mac. Oh my gosh. Well, you know, when you get to this age, you kind of forget things and stuff. But just like my brother said, the mayor needs 4 more years. So thank you.
Well, first of all, thank you so much. And as I said, you know, we are doing everything we can to provide support, to provide safety, and to provide resources to a community that oftentimes feels forgotten. So I understand that feeling of neglect and feeling of being forgotten. And I have tried everything that I could to make a point of investing. And when I say investing, not what I want to do, but what people here wanted to see. And so people here, when I first became mayor, told me that they don't want to see this project sitting here and not happening because it wasn't going to move forward. The people here told me that they wanted, Larry harassed the heck out of me over that gym. And not only that, he went out and helped us talk to other people, wealthy people, to give money to help get it done. He advocated for it. And Miss Patsy was getting pennies from the city. And that place was busting out in the seams, and they was told they could only be in certain rooms. But they're the ones serving people. So a lot of things had to be corrected. And I've spent my time making corrections based on the feedback of the people that were out here doing a lot of the work. And so, are we done? No. Is it perfect? No. Did I make it to everybody? No. But I am committed to doing everything I can to continue to invest, to support, and to uplift this community. And more importantly, I have done everything I could to ensure that communities like this all over the city are heard, are supported. And oftentimes, people won't even give a community like this the time of day until it's an election time. And so I will continue to do everything I can to be of service, to ensure support, and to ensure safety. And I have a track record, and where there are deficiencies, make sure I know where those are so that we can course correct. And then pray that God gives me the strength to be able to deliver for you and for this city. Because there is a reason why I'm here. Because I could have been on a whole nother level. And I am here, a person who understands what a lot of you have experienced. And I want to make sure that I am doing everything I can to be of service in whatever way. And that's why I'm here today. And I appreciate the invitation. I appreciate the chance to come here and to talk to not only people who I know, but people who I don't know. For people to hear from me directly about what I've done. Shoot, Larry mentioned some stuff I done forgot about. But I'm glad he's here to talk about it. But that doesn't mean we're done. There's more to be done. And it is important to have someone in this office who has not just respect for this community, love for this community, love for seeing you succeed. When you succeed, when my community living, when folks is doing a thing and feeling joy and living life, there is nothing like that in the world than to see your community, after dealing with trials and tribulations, go through this point. That's why I come out here for Family Day or for whatever it is that I can make it to. But please trust and believe, even when I'm not here, I'm working for you. Even when I'm not here, I'm thinking about you. Because when I get that call when something ain't going right, trust me, it will go right with one phone call from me. That's what I do. And you may not always see it or feel it, but it happens. So when you make your decision this election, I hope that decision is for me. I hope that decision is for me. And as I said, what is for me, according to God, is for me. And I pray that what God decides is the right decision for the city, ultimately. And so it is great to be in the house of the Lord. It is great to be here with all of you. And I want to again say thank you so much. This is a beautiful, amazing community, and I am honored to represent you as the mayor. Thank you.